Something about you feels so different. Yeah, you mess me up inside. It's like your energy was kissing my soul back to life, was living. Now it feels like every part of me is died. Yeah, you're gone without a trace. You left me where no one can find me. There's no sign of life out here. I scream and it goes silent. I fight so hard, but I can't find my way out. Lost all dimension and time. All alone, I'm losing my mind in this ghost town. Every message that I send you, you just leave them all unread. Now every part of me is hurting. Cross my heart, I don't deserve this. Loved you just for you to haunt me in the end. Yeah, you're gone without a trace. You left me where no one can find me. There's no sign of life out here. I scream and it goes silent. I fight so hard, but I can't find my way out. Lost all dimension and time. I don't think I'm losing my mind in this ghost town.
Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, the Paranormal Portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by this supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. Gatekeepers, how are you tonight? Welcome in. Wow. Crazy week. Every time we meet on a Sunday night, I look back over the week and think, okay, what's everybody going through? Sometimes we've been here and it's been devastating tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, droughts. I think a couple times didn't we do a tsunami once? I know we did a an asteroid or two, 3 eclipse. Gosh, probably more than that. That last one was a doozy, though, wasn't it? How's everybody doing? I hope you danced a little. I love that song. I just think it's great when they open up new music for YouTube audio library. So creator music, you go through every year and you put in, spooky, scary, Halloween, ghost, supernatural. You just keep throwing in these words to see if you can pull up stuff that you're looking for the feeling. That one came up this year, and it's great. Wasn't it fun? Did you kick your shoes off? Did you dance a little? How's everybody doing? Hi, Liv. Well, shoot. Thank you. That's kind of you. Yeah, I'm just, we're here pushing buttons. Sometimes it's the right one, sometimes it isn't. So we'll see if we can get through tonight. We are doing Edgar Allan Poe. Welcome everybody in. Welcome everybody in. Now, I just want to say hi to everybody, but I want to let you know I'm doing this a little different because I think you could go online and see some fantastic documentaries. I think you can see some fantastic, really feature deep dives on Edgar Allan Poe and his life. So I thought at least 2 days, wanted to do something different tonight. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, kind of a Poe parade. I just thought of that off the top of my head. That was good. Somebody write it down. Where's my mods? Hello, mods. Everybody, thank the mods for being so nice to everybody that pops in here and welcoming people and slinging bacon and hearts and ghosts and everything at them. I cannot thank them enough. Because I'll tell you, Scott's missing too. And we need Bernice, but we'll keep going. Oh, hey, she's here. All right, excellent. Now we need Potpourri, right, Henry? Come on, I'm taking it. I'll take the mulligan. I want it. Thank you. Was it good? I liked it. Yeah, the music is great. Listen, all we're trying to do is have a good time because everybody's had a hell of a week. Somebody, everybody's hell looks different. That's all I can say. And that's the number one thing I'm opening up with tonight. So I hate talking in code, but here we go. I need everybody to stay very aware out there. Listen, stop leaving your doors unlocked. Stop leaving your windows open. You can't, things are going to get different here depending on where you are. But I think that's a blanket statement. Take care of yourself a little better. Maybe go get an extra something instead of that you might need next week, just in case. You know what I mean? It's not just lard candles and, and baked beans in a can. It's not just canning or trying to grow stuff or, make sure you have what you need so you don't have to venture out if you're in a spot that might be having a little ruckus going on. Because, folks, it's not fair that they're, not just putting out all the correct news and everything else. You have to really dig for it. And then you have your people that say, well, I'd be hearing about it if that was happening. People in here in this chat are a little smarter than that. So please look out, be calm, don't be aware, situational awareness. Don't be talking on the phone, be all distracted when you pull into your garage. Make sure your garage door is shut. I do these things automatically. Look in your back seat before you get in, that kind of stuff. If you have to get out, pump gas, do it quickly. Don't be distracted and it's about. Look around you, at the grocery store. Make sure you're not getting followed. And if you are, everybody knows that 3 consecutive left turns ought to tell you. And then you drive somewhere else. For the love of Pete, don't drive home. Unless you absolutely have to. And you've got something in there that can, change your odds, if you know what I mean. Please be careful. And I would have felt like a jerk if I didn't say something. But if I'm stopping everything, if I'm stopping Poe to say that, I'm hoping wherever you are, things are just dandy and everything is cool. But if it isn't, I want us to take a minute and just, send some good energy out there. Everybody grab that light because this is it, light workers. This is what you were born to do. So, help your neighbor, look out. Don't be afraid to stop along the way and go, hey, spirit guys, I need some direction here. You want me to do this? You better get in here. Come on, this is all of us. Let's go. I need some direction here. I need a little of this. I need a little pick me up, little spiritual pick me up, or I need that person over there to cooperate because, you know, and ask for help because they can't help you unless they ask for help. Keep the lights on. It's been a rough couple weeks for everybody, you know, and if it's not, God bless you. And I hope it stays that way. But don't be afraid. That's why I'm putting stuff out during the day, stuff during the week, as much as any other reason. I put it out there so everybody could jump in chat and say, hey, I'm good. Are you good? I'm good. Good to see you. You know, see you in a couple days. See you in another chat, whatever that may be. Okay? But do that. Check in. Let us know if others are okay or if they need some extra, you know. That's what light workers do, but you have to dip in to get that jump every once in a while. So that being said, very important. Please underline everything I said. Please italicize it, highlight it, and keep it right here. Okay. Please keep your eye out. So, yeah, Poe. So I wanted to say that, you know, not an expert, certainly not an expert on all of his literature. You know, never did like the complete works of Poe. When I started digging into it, there was quite a few things, you know, I didn't know, never heard of. And then there was some old favorites that came back that I had forgotten. So I hope that happens for you too. I tried to find a different kind of way to present some of this stuff. Not everything is in the same format. Not everything's by the same person. Excuse me. Not everything is, you know, as cut and dry as some of the other people have done. Because like I said, that there's so many good documentaries, so many good theories on his death and, you know, things that focus more on his life and, you know, that kind of thing, more of a biography-ish kind of thing. And of course, there's the different stuff, adaptations of his works. So let's say hi to everybody and we'll get started because this is going to be fun tonight. And what I'm going to do tomorrow is focus with Steve if he can be here. Excuse me. Tea went down there. It's like got extra cinnamon in it or something. It's just one of those teas that's like, whoa, it's got a kick. So hopefully Steve will be able to be here. Little Holden is just doing great. Mom, little family's doing wonderful. And but you know, with babies, you want to be able to have your rest. So I'm hoping he's going to help me look over to the mysteries and the theories of his death and some other things because I know Steve is very familiar with Poe and he'll have a lot of stuff he wants to say about that. So tonight we're going to do it a little different. So how you doing, Ted? How's little His Majesty doing? Okay. And I'm talking about the dog, not you, right? You and your Buick. How you doing, Lulabelle? I hope you danced. I hope you danced and smiled. And we could play that on the way out too. I thought that was a jazzy little tune. So, and it's got a lot of spooky little stuff. And we're getting in spooky time. And Halloween's coming up. And you know, this Halloween's gonna be lit, man. I mean, I kid you not. And nobody's gonna know who's who and what's what. And you know, trick or treating. No. Nope. Sorry. Not this year. You know, because I don't know. That could really be Frankenstein this year. I'm not trusting nothing. Vixen, it's good to see you, honey. It's so funny. Sometimes I'll reach in here and I'll say, hey, where's so-and-so? And they pop in and it's great. Common Belief, good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, it's going to be off the chain. Henry, good to see you too. How you doing? A ghost Buick. Yeah. That's great. I'm just kidding, Ted. I'm just trying to make you laugh. We all need to laugh, right? You know, steady. And Midwest, so glad to see you. Oh, goodness. That came up fast. If you say God bless you, I thank you. I think I heard people say it. Could hear it. And if anybody sees Scott, tell him I said, hey, he's probably working hard on that cabin, putting it all together. RP, good to see you. Lynn, it's good to see you too. Yep. Are you a Poe fan, Lynn? You're welcome to pop in tomorrow night if you have some favorite Poe stuff you want to talk about. So anyhow, like I said, I admitted right out the gate. Oh, the witch, you got a Raven First Nation staff. Oh man, I bet you that's so cool, Vixen. With a witch walk next to it. Oh, great. I bet you that's really cool. She'll be floating about. Good, good, good. Good, good, good. The cat as well. Cat, yep. Okay. So Poe. You know, right away I always think of the Raven. I have so many memories of that. I think that's one of the first ones. That one and Annabelle Lee that always came back to me. And then, of course, after that, Pendulum, House of Ball, House of Usher. Um, everybody's got, I think, their favorites, and I'm sure that not everybody can remember all of them. There's so many, right? But for a little refresher course, here is a little intro I put together for you. Is this it? Yep, here it is right here. And that'll give you a little, you know, intro into Poe. Who knows who has read a lot of Poe's? Give me a hand or a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up, I guess. Or throw some bacon at me if I'll take all the bacon and love I can get right now. Much appreciated. But anyhow, who has read you say more than 5 Poe novels, stories, short stories, or some that are very short? Vixen for sure, Henry, yep. And I think reading it is a whole lot different than having the visual of watching a film or maybe even listening to someone else read it. It's a whole different experience. Oh, have you Midwest? Great, great, great. But would you agree with me that reading something, it's one-on-one, you and the author? I love that experience. And I can remember first having to read Poe, and I believe it was Annabelle Lee in English and Lit, probably 7th grade, maybe something like that, and maybe 6th. And the teacher that was talking about it and the depth of the words and how he pulled you into that, whether even his deep love, obvious love for the person he was writing it for, it had melancholia. It was just all ribboned through it, you know. And not only that, but it was just, if the cadence of it, you know, it was almost like a heartbeat itself. And then you've got the Telltale Heart, which I also believe we read. Again, that's a big part of it. So, you know, that beat, that cadence, that almost that rhythmic heartbeat, you know, and then it kind of slows down and it hits. The cadence on his stuff is just beautiful. The Gothic, macabre kind of nature that pulls you in. It's almost like as you're reading it, you can feel the fog. Do you know what I mean? I think that's just a little bit different with Poe. That's what I got from it. And like I said, at a young age. And at that time, I was reading a lot of Holzer and, you know, Hans Holzer and, you know, that ilk. And Poe, as far as the poetry that I read, I really liked it, but I never went out and sought the full collections or whatever and really dove into it. I'm more or less, after those facts, got fed Poe through film adaptations and probably dramatic readings. I really enjoyed getting it that way. Big fan of like the one man show. Very much like the Mark Twain one, who Hal Holbrook did a great, you know. Now, that made me wonder how, because I know Poe went out and did readings. That was a big thing back then. Twain did a lot of them. Many people did. And it made me wonder in his demeanor how he was as a performer and how he was at holding a room and pulling them in the way it would be with just you and the book. Do you see where I'm coming from? Everything after that, that's past just you, the author, and yourself, and a candle, and maybe a cat, and a warm cup of, you know, cinnamon apple tea or cold beer or coffee or whatever it may be, and you have that experience. You're taken away, you know. And I think movies and films can do that as well, but in a different way. So many different senses are fed at one time, whereas when you're reading, he's giving you that. It's more of a personal give and take, where his words are creating that visual in your own mind with your imagination, and it's really personal, you know. And that's kind of dangerous with Poe, because he's obviously um delves in the darker realms, in the whether it's the human darker realms, well, gosh, aren't they all, of depression and anxiety and unrequited love and loss of love and fear of losing love and fearing of not loving, and uh, hate and jealousy and all the things, and the things that just madmen, think and feel, and how you can make your own self go completely mad and talk yourself into um, that that cascade of into that darker hole, almost like Mel's hole of melancholia. And then you add the persona of Poe. And again, this is all just my observations and my experience. And if you had a different one, or it took you in a different place, please here, put it in the chat. Because again, I think it's the experience of how you're introduced to Poe that made a difference as well. Telltale Heart, absolutely. I mean, Vixen, the way, if that's done right, with the right cadence and read by the right, oh gosh, it's frightening. And he could take you there. And I wonder too how other people were exposed to it back in Poe's day, because not only was he an author and poetry and getting his stuff out there and getting it seen by a lot of people, it didn't happen right away. He was a critic, and he made a lot of enemies because he was a critic, and he had this kind of, from what I can pick up, along with all the things I've already said, not really an arrogance, but yeah, kind of, when it came to being a critic. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand, yeah? A lot of them are. Annabelle Lee inspired the Conjuring name. Who knows, Ted? They could have, So let's go ahead and get a little taste of a taste of Poe. I wonder what that tastes like. Probably very salty, a little burnt, maybe, like, because you'd have to get that dark goth kind of flavoring in there. That charcoaly kind of, isn't that this weird thing to think of? I think of those things because here's the thing: when people do wines or do a whiskey or a liqueur or something after somebody, it has the essence of what that person kind of inspired you to think. Like, you definitely have some pepper and some cayenne, but you'd also have some other kind of other things too. It would be so sad. They do the same thing with perfumes. If you're doing a perfume of someone, it's a big deal. It's kind of crazy. I wonder if they still do that. Hey, Cam, welcome in. Welcome in. This kind of things fascinate me. So, Poe, here we go. Okay, so that gives you a little look, a little peep into Poe. Uh, all the women he loved, from his mother at 3, he was 3. His mom was very young, in her early 40s, I do believe. The dad left when he was, so he is adopted by a foster family, um, the Allens, which is where he got his middle name from. He took that, Allen. Um, and he was raised, the mom was very cool to him. The dad was, kind of standoffish for the day. He was a businessman. He was, oh gosh, what did he do? Was it printing? I know it was a manufacturer of some sort, businessman. He wanted Poe to take over the business. Poe wasn't interested. He wanted to be a writer, and he wanted to do what he was going to do. And when the father died, he left Poe nothing. And he left the other children stuff, but he cut Poe off. So this started, his whole life was just one after the other after the other. He loved the foster mother greatly. She dies of tuberculosis. He meets another love of his life. His mother dies of tuberculosis. His foster mother dies of tuberculosis. Then he meets the love of his life, Virginia, and she is his 13-year-old cousin. He is about 10 years her senior, and he falls madly in love with her. They have a wonderful time together. It's crazy. A lot of people got married young back then. Look at Elvis, same diametrics right there. Who's the crazy redhead with the piano? I mean, so many people married his cousin, 13-year-old cousin. What's going on with these guys? Anyhow, oddly enough, very happy. She loved him. They hung out together. They loved to be creative. She supported his writing. She was terrific. And she died of tuberculosis. And that's when Annabel Lee was created. So Poe was always going through this angst of being alone and loving and losing and all of this. And it's just terrible because it's so many people that have gone through this angst. Hey, John, welcome in. This angst can relate. And I think that's part of it. But there's also that lore of that goth. And it's so funny how many different, especially now with AI and stuff, you're pulling up. Hey, Kat, welcome in. You're pulling up all these videos and they're doing voiceovers and things. There's a million of them. And everybody picks this English accent. And it's almost like another ironic thing that happens with Poe. The irony does not quit. The dark, deep irony does not quit with Poe. It starts very young and it continues throughout his life. And you will see throughout these 2 nights. So it's just amazing how people keep putting him with this English accent. And he was born in Boston. He's born Boston, Massachusetts, in the United States. So it just seems, because he is so goth, and probably you could say almost the father of goth in a lot of ways, depending on who you speak to. And the thing I just love about him so much is that he is undoubtedly the person who laid out the templates for all 4 forms of the wonderful mysteries and detective mysteries that we love so much. And every time I pull a mystery up and we're watching it, I always think of Poe, and how much Sir Arthur Conan Doyle gave him a heads up too when he created Sherlock Holmes. He said, if it wasn't for Poe, there would be no Sherlock Holmes. So there you go. So there's a little tidbit about Poe. What he was most known for is, as I said many times, was his pen, his cadence, the way he presented a story, the way he left it all in the field. When he wrote something, it just poured out of him, and it was, I bet he almost collapsed. I didn't mention that he had this horrible alcoholism. I think it was a little deeper than that. I think saying he was an alcoholic is a little too easy. There was something else going on with him where he almost could not tolerate alcohol. and I forget the name of the disease. When I heard it, it wasn't the one I was thinking of, but there must be several different types where your body just rejects it. But for some reason, so many people drank back then. He went through many bouts of sobriety, getting sober. And I think that's where that whole thing comes from, where he said something along the lines of that he's completely insane, blissfully insane, with hellish bouts of normalcy or something like that. But so being sane was harder for Poe than succumbing to all the different psychosis that was going on with him. But that the cadence and the way he wrote, I think, is what pulls a lot of people into. And I think it's very much like listening to a sad song when you're sad. It helps it get it out. And I think back in the day, you really didn't have that unless you had music on the streets or music at home or in the churches and in your, wherever you were worshiping. That kind of music came out of you like that. That's in a deep place. That's a lot of the minor chord. You know what I mean? It's like the blues kind of thing that helps it get out. I don't think the people in the cities had a lot of that. They had more of that highbrow. If they had a piano, if they had of course, the classics and stuff like that. I'm sure you can get that with some Beethovens and things, but you're not getting a lot of that in the parlors in 1840s. So I think people got it more from the poetry and the Gothic themed stories. Like, look, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was coming out, the Draculas and things like this. And Poe was way ahead of his time for getting out those stories that just kept coming. H.P. Lovecraft, another one, but further on. So let's take a listen to one of those stories. If I hit the right button, Ted, we might want to have the seatbelts. Not yet. I think I got this one. So nobody has to put your trays up yet, but you might have to here before the show's over. I could almost bet on it. So let's see if the sound works and everything, we'll be all right.
From childhood's hours, I have not been as others were. I have not seen as others saw. I could not bring my passions from a common spring. From the same source I have not taken my sorrow. I could not awaken my heart to joy at the same tone. And all I loved alone. Then, in my childhood, in the dawn of a most stormy life, was drawn from every depth of good and ill the mystery which binds me still. From the torrent or the fountain, from the red cliff of the mountain, from the sun that round me rolled in its autumn tint of gold, from the lightning in the sky as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm, and the cloud that took the form when the rest of heaven was blue, of a demon in my view.
It's good stuff. What do you think? And all I loved alone. So with Poe, I believe there he is reveling in the beauty of just being at peace and being alone and appreciating that's around you. I mean, Henry, you know what I'm talking about. When you're sitting there and you're fishing, or you're walking around in the field and you're just looking up at the clouds. You do it all the time, every day, dropping pictures. So many people here understand that. To be alone, maybe to sit for an hour and watch a chipmunk gather seed and take it off and put it in his nest and come back, and the bird feeder, a wind blowing a leaf on a tree and just enjoying that warm breeze. There's so many people in the chat here saying this is a great day for fall. Well, I can't imagine anything better to start it with than a little Poe, a tree. So here we go. Here's another one. That one was Alone, and I just love it. I love the reader, the narrator, the voice, everything is just wonderful. So, and that's the way it should be done. I think that's probably the way Poe heard it in his head, with all the crazy. Why is it that the ones that think the deepest sometimes are so outside in the streets or in the taverns, and back in these days, always that's the one that they say, oh, he was this or he was that, he was a loner, he was a genius, but he was not socially the life of the party, but this is where we always seem to get our deepest stories and poetries and those novels that grip us and take us away. So many of these authors, male or female, seem to always have a lot of strife in their life, a lot of struggle, a lot of pain. And I think this also is a great way to look at our own lives and say, well, why did I have to go through that? Why is this happening to me now? Well, honey, it's how warriors are built, and it's always so sad. This is a perfect case with Poe, because I think he did struggle. I think he really was a warrior that kept getting up and kept going, but these things kept happening to him. And the way he was able to find a way to express that, we're still celebrating today, because he's one of the most celebrated authors out there. If you go into any bookstore, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, it's got a whole wall. He's got more caricatures, more comic books, more films, more adaptations of his works, more everything than anybody else. That's saying something, right? So here's another. This one. Where is it? Oh, this is good. Oh, I love this one. Which one's it going to be? So good.
Take this kiss upon the brow.
Wow. I don't know when was the last time you heard that, but think about that. Everything we've been going through the past couple of years and everything else, and so many people, coming and going, or people, we talked about a couple weeks ago, families not talking, or people splitting this way and that way. And, whether you think about like The Stand, or everybody splitting up, and some people going to the cornfield, some going to LA, some people went to LA, wish they went to the cornfield. But, the cornfield's not easy either, because there's rats in the corn. So, again, there he is talking about almost that fleeting, you love so much, and people are here one moment and gone the next. Is this just a dream within a dream? Are we in the Matrix? Are we a simulation? Everything is so fleeting. It's so real for one moment in time, and then poof, a memory. And he feels powerless to stop it. Can I not save one? And he's talking about his fingers and crying through his fingers, and almost the tears, to me, almost are representing the lives that slip through our fingers. Um, and his whole lifetime, he's trying to come to grips with this. It's a reoccurring theme in almost everything. Um, luckily, Poe found a way to take that and flip it and put it on paper and send it out there. And I think he was more surprised than anybody else that people reacted the way they did. Does this make sense? Okay. Yeah, he was absolutely a tormented genius. Yeah. And so many are. So many are. So that's why, in a lot of ways, I think in the past couple of decades, we've really learned through, if you didn't know it already, I think a lot of other people are learning it through different television shows or whatever it may be, or movies like Beautiful Mind and some of the other ones, and so many other ways we've learned to appreciate autists that could solve puzzles like crazy and decode things like, but back then, especially now, he's got this alcoholic issue where it's not. I really have I'm no doctor, but I have a sneaking suspicion that that was another thing against him. Everybody's drinking. Hey, how you doing? Welcome in. Rufio, welcome in. Nothing can haunt you if you are the hunter. True. But here's the thing. When you look at and I agree with you, but there's always this. We always think we're at the top of the food chain, and there's always something more mighty. And when we think of mighty can change, conditions can change, and that can shift, but it's always the same couple of things. But if you get really deep and you look up into what is the biggest killer of all, it's the tiniest thing. Microorganisms. They've been here before, they'll be here long after. So when you think about how big we look and everything that we bring in and everything we're afraid of, we're missing a little thing. And I think that very thing hit Poe, because every single person, every woman that he cared for, I think every man in his life, I don't want to say every, let's say most, that he came in a lot of contact with in large chunks of his lifetime, disappointed him because they felt disappointed by him. And instead of feeling bad about that for him, in my mind, I kind of look at it like that was probably where he got his most strength, because it hurt him so much in a different way than losing the women that he loved to tuberculosis, that microorganism that's probably at the top of the food chain, if you want to look at it that way. But the men that disappointed him because they acted like he disappointed them made him stronger. Right? Right, exactly. Now how strong are you? Right. This is how warriors are built. Warriors are in here. This is how you keep each other's lights on. If you have to be that alone and that loner for a short time, it's always good to reach out, which is again why I do all that stuff during the week, so people can jump in the chat and say, hey, I know darn well a lot of people don't listen to the mystery as closely as possible. Some people are in there trying to solve the puzzle. I like doing that. I like listening to chunks of it, so I'm really not sure what's going on if I'm in the chat trying to figure it out. And sometimes I'm surprised too. But it's not just that. It's to tap in. Just have a place to come in and tap in and go, hey, I'm okay. Are you okay? We're cool. Hey, I feel better when you left than when you came in. Whether you're getting your joy from just hanging out in the chat and whatever it may be, or doing this mystery and trying to solve a puzzle. And Poe is the father of that. which is so cool. So cool. And I just think it's so neat that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle made it a point to put that out there and said there would be no Sherlock Holmes without Poe. And Poe, again, like so many, and throw your stuff in the chat here if you agree, disagree, whatever, bring it in, let's talk about it. But I think so many, whether it's artist, whether it's an author or whatever, gets more famous posthumously after death. Of course, that's really popular now because you have more things really churning and making that happen, like big music moguls making more of after somebody dies or was killed or was set up to be killed in an obvious manner decades ago. So many stories, right? So many stories we can name. But, and then after the fact, I'm thinking of one particular one now. The young man, I believe, was 22, 23. And I think he got shot in the back of a limo, if I'm not mistaken. And there was a car in front, ran the red lights, but they got stuck. They stayed. Almost like it was set up. It was really weird. So many stories like this. But the point is that the people that were in charge of keeping that music, supposedly, allegedly, made more money for longer off of his stuff than the time he was alive on Earth. I never saw much of it. And it's funny that people are. I'm looking at all the names that are going down, and I know as an old broad. Listen, I'm an old broad, and I can name you more 60s, 70s, 50s, maybe 80s groups. Because look, I have something. I've been an AC/DC fan all my life. Luckily, God bless them. And guess they just retired. They didn't do all this farewell to, here, rock, get the fuck out. We're tired. We're going home. We're going on our yachts. We're done. It's been a great run. 50 years. Boom. So, and then I'm so eclectic. I know a little bit more stuff outside, believe me. But once you start getting into that rap and, everything else, I can name some. I don't know all this Little Pork Chop and know Lil Wayne. I like Lil Wayne. I like to listen to him talk. Not so much as, very talented. Play real good guitar. But what I was saying is I'm looking at all these names. It could be any one of them. Could be any one of them. Unless you get down to the details about the limo being stopped and the bodyguard getting squished so it couldn't get out to help them. And, then that car takes off with all the help in the car. Come uppins. And not, I think it's delicious in a way that when people get caught for doing bad things to other people and doing something like making money off of their work, it's cold-blooded. That's some cold-blooded shenanigans right there. So again, allegedly, my opinion, did this happen to Poe? I think it did. In a lot of ways. He had a friend who he considered a friend. I don't believe this guy was, and I'm not going to go into great detail. I'm going to save that for Steve tomorrow night. But that was the first person to get the word out on Poe's death, and it was another person who was a critic at the time, and he had been very critical of Poe, but Poe was critical too. So he considered it more of a debate back and forth. Yeah. But this guy really dissed him, when he was dead. So, yeah, I think that's a human thing. It's an inhuman thing. But we say it's a human thing because people do it a lot, and it happens no matter what decade you're in, no matter who you are. And the community's got stories like this, right? So, let me see what y'all are saying. Lil Wayne is a monster. Is he a monster? I don't know that much about him. I like the few interviews I've heard, and I like the story about how he was saved and when he was shot. If you're familiar with what I'm talking about, I don't know all that much about him, so I'm certainly not endorsing anybody. You'd be hard pressed to get me to endorse anybody. Like I can honestly say I endorse George Washington right now. As much as I've dug in on him, I have to think about even the people I know. Because we act like we know people, but I live right across the street from my neighbor. I can't tell you what the hell she's doing. I'm just not that I'm not that neighbor. I'm watching, I'm gonna know if there's cars that don't belong, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. But I couldn't tell you which. I could guess. I'm sure I'd be off because we think we know, but we don't. But as far as rappers and name and all the stuff, I know a lot more about some. I know a lot that I wish I didn't know. I'll tell you that. I think there's more I wish I didn't know than what I. Oof. It's just, look, you're not going to get that level without doing some evil shit. It's just not allowed. There's a couple that could really become really good at bobbing and weaving. They're not stupid. They stay away from that stuff. It's like, oh no, I'll take the hard road. Y'all keep that. And there are people that can go in and be successful, but they turn down the stuff. They're not going to get the promotion. We all know this. If you don't know this by now, that's how I look at people. And if they're falling all over somebody because they got a coach person, look what they did here, look what they did there. Look, I will fall all over, AC/DC or some talented person on YouTube. I've seen more talented people on YouTube than I've seen at the Grammys. And I haven't seen a good movie. And well, that's a lie. I just saw Twisters. It wasn't bad. And I didn't think I was going to like it because I don't like remakes, and it's not really a remake. It's a little different. But it was a good flick. It wasn't Grapes of Wrath. It wasn't 12 Angry Men. It wasn't, The Longest Day or, The Great Escape or anything like that, or Patton, for the love of God. But, it was a good flick. And it was free, too. So I didn't have to pay $15 and $50 for popcorn and a Coke. So, that stings a little bit. So you better show me something good. And that's rare. But anyway, Poe. So that's what's sad to me about Poe. It's the mystery. I have a theory on that. It's a basic one. I do believe in the cooping. We'll talk more about that tomorrow night, but it fits. I think there was some alcohol poisoning going on. I think there was a little bit more, like maybe another drug that his body didn't take well. He was delirious. We'll get into, like I said, we'll get into more of that. And I think that's very sad, and what a sad ending, because it really grates my nerves when somebody of a great stature, a decent human being that's trying, and, again, like Little Wayne, I don't know what Poe was doing hither and yon. I have no clue. From what I can see, he didn't deserve what he got. He didn't deserve what was happening to him. But he hung in there. And I think that, and because of not just the talent, but because of the caricature of somebody that was going through that much inner angst, did not give up. I've never heard anybody say he committed suicide, or he did this, or he went off and just did some real wrong to people and just was a degenerate and a debauch, you know what I mean? But he had that happen to him. And those are such tough characters it adds to the whole world of Poe, I don't know. You may feel different. Your mileage may vary, but that's what I'm thinking. So what do we have next? We've done, did we do that one? That's a good one. Okay, so what I thought we would do next is I thought, we could go down the avenue of, more documentary style and everything else. And I thought, well, that's just a bunch of people giving their opinions, as I just did, on what they think they know about Poe. I think to go in and learn a little bit about Poe is to follow his own words. And in order to do that, you've got to find somebody that knows how to do Poe. And I don't know. Somebody rhymes tonight. I don't know if you know Poe. No, I don't know who you feel. If you've ever seen a one-act play on Poe, or, you saw a documentary that had a local actor or something else that just really nailed it. I've seen a few in the past week or two. But doggone it, I don't think you can get much better than this guy right here. So I went to the king, as far as I'm concerned. Poe, the way Poe should be done. Here begins the land of phantoms. Happy Halloween, everybody. Doesn't get much better than this. From 1974. A little Halloween special I remember watching when I was 12. I found it. So for the next hour, we're going to let this gentleman bring to you Poe. You may want to put your trays up in the upright position. You don't have to put your seatbelts on, though. This is going to be good.
True. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous. I had been and am, but why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. And so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus to rid myself of the eye forever. Now, this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing, but you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and I opened it, oh, so gently. And then when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed so that no light shone out. And then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it very slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour placed my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Now, would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously I undid it, just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. This I did for 7 long nights, every night at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man that vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone and inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph. I had my head in the room and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped on the tin fastening and the old man sprang up in the bed crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed listening. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of long drawn-out mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief, oh no. No, it was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul, and overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it had welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and I pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise when he had turned in the bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It's nothing but the wind in the chimney. It's only a mouse crossing the floor. It is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." Yes, he'd been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he had found it all in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim. He felt the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it, oh, you cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a single dim ray, like the thread of a spider, shot from out the crevice and full upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow of my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the rays as if by instinct precisely on the damned spot. Now, have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over acuteness of the senses? Now I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier to courage. But even yet I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker and quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous, so I am. And now, at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of this old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet for some minutes longer, I refrained and stood still. But the beating grew louder and louder. I thought the heart must burst. And now, a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw the lantern and leapt into the room. He shrieked once, only once. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled a heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. For many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. Still, this did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall, and then, at last, it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there for many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. Now, if you still think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. First, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head, and then the arms and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber, and I deposited all beneath the floor. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out. No stain of any kind, no blood spot whatsoever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught it all. And then, when I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bells sounded, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused, and they, the officers, had been dispatched to search the premises. I smiled. For what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house, and I bade them search and search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied my manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale, and I wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears, but still they sat and they chatted. The ringing became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definitiveness until at length I found that the noise was not within my ears. It was a low, dull, quick sound, such a sound as a watch makes, enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath. Yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and I argued about trifles, but the noise increased steadily. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observation of the men, but the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting, grated it upon the boards, but the noise rose above all. It grew louder, louder, and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible that they heard not? Oh, Almighty God, no, they heard. They suspected. They knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now again, hark! Louder, 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 louder! Villains! Dissemble no more! I admit the deed! Tear up the planks! Here! It is the beating of his hideous heart! During the dread reign of cholera in New York, I had accepted the invitation of a relative to spend a fortnight with him here in the retirement of his cottage on the banks of the Hudson. We should have passed the time pleasantly enough, but for the fearful news which reached us every morning from the populous city. Not a day elapsed which did not bring us intelligence of the decease of some acquaintance. We trembled at the approach of every messenger. The very air from the city seemed to us redolent with death. I could neither speak, think, nor dream of anything else. My host was of a less excitable temperament. To the realities of terror he was sufficiently alive, but of its shadows he had no apprehension. I was not so fortunate, and the palsying fears of evil and death had taken possession of my soul. My state of mind had been well primed for the terrifying incident which soon took place. Near the close of an exceedingly warm day, I was alone, sitting with a book in hand at this window, commanding through a long vista of the riverbanks a view of a distant hill, the face of which nearest my position had been denuded by a landslide of the principal portion of its trees. My thoughts had been long wandering from the volume before me to the gloom and desolation of the neighboring city. Uplifting my eyes from the page, they fell upon the naked face of the hill and upon an object, upon some living monster of hideous conformation, which very rapidly made its way from the summit to the bottom, disappearing finally in the dense forest below. As this creature first came in sight, I doubted my own sanity, and many minutes passed before I succeeded in convincing myself that I was neither mad nor in a dream. Estimating the size of the creature, I concluded it to be far larger than any ship of the line in existence. I say ship of the line because the shape of the monster suggested the idea. The hull of one of our battleships might convey a very tolerable conception of the general outline. The mouth of the animal was situated at the end of a tube, some 60 or 70 feet in length, and about as thick as the body of an ordinary elephant. Near the root of this trunk was an immense quantity of black, shaggy hair, more than could have been supplied by the coats of a score of buffalo, and projecting from this hair downwardly and laterally sprang two gleaming tusks, not unlike that of the wild boar, but of infinitely greater dimension. The body was fashioned like a wedge with a point toward the earth. From it there were outspread 2 pairs of wings, each wing nearly 100 yards in length, one pair being placed above the other, and all thickly covered with metal scales, each scale apparently some 10 or 12 feet in diameter. But the chief peculiarity of this horrible thing was the representation of a death's head, which covered nearly the whole surface of its breast, and which was as accurately traced in glaring white upon the dark ground of the body as if it had been carefully designed by an artist. While I regarded this terrifying animal, and more especially the appearance on its breast, with a feeling of horror and awe, I perceived the huge jaws at the extremity of the trunk suddenly expand themselves, and from them there proceeded a sound so loud and so expressive of woe that it struck upon my nerves like a knell. And as the monster disappeared at the foot of the hill, I fell almost fainting to the floor. Upon recovering, my first impulse was to inform my friend of what I had seen and heard, and I can scarcely explain what feeling of repugnance it was which in the end operated to prevent me. At length, one evening, some 3 or 4 days after the occurrence, we were sitting together in this room in which I had seen the apparition, I occupying the same seat at the same window, and he lounging in this chair nearby. The association of the place and time suddenly impelled me to give him an account of the phenomenon. He heard me to the end. At first he laughed heartily, and then he lapsed into an excessively grave demeanor, as if my insanity was a thing beyond suspicion. At this instant I again had a distinct view of the monster, to which, with a shout of absolute terror, I now directed his attention. "Look! Look!" He looked eagerly, but maintained that he saw nothing, although I designated minutely the course of the creature as it made its way down the naked face of the hill. I was now immeasurably alarmed, for I considered the vision either as an omen of my death, or worse, as a forerunner of an attack of madness. I threw myself passionately back in the window seat, and for some moments I buried my face in my hands. My host, however, had in some degree resumed the calmness of his demeanor, and questioned me very rigorously in respect to the confirmation of the visionary creature. When I had fully satisfied him on this head, he sighed deeply, as if relieved of some intolerable burden, and then he stepped to the bookcase and brought forth one of the ordinary synopses of natural history. He then requested me to exchange seats with him. He took my place at the window, and, opening the book, resumed his discourse. "But for your minuteness," he said, "in describing the monster, I might never have had it in my power to demonstrate to you what it was. In the first place, let me read to you a schoolboy account of the genus Sphinx, of the family Crepuscularia, of the class of Insecta or insects. The account runs thus: 4 membranous wings covered with little colored scales of metallic appearance, mouth forming a rolled tube produced by an elongation of the jaws, upon the sides of which are found the rudiments of mandibles and downy palpi, abdomen pointed. The death-headed Sphinx has occasioned much terror among the unlearned by the melancholy kind of cry which it utters, and the insignia of death which it wears upon its corslet." He closed the book and leaned back in the seat, placing himself accurately in the position which I had occupied at the moment of beholding the monster. "Ah, there it is," he exclaimed. "It is reascending the face of the hill, and a very remarkable creature I admit it to be. Still, it is by no means so large or so distant as you had imagined it. For the fact is that as it wriggles its way up this thread which some spider has wrought along the window sash, I find it to be about the 16th of an inch in its extreme length, and also about the 16th of an inch distance from the pupil of my eye. The 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insults, I vowed revenge. Now you who so well know the nature of my soul will not suppose, however, that I gave utterance to a threat. At length I would be avenged. I would not only punish, but punish with impunity. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my good will. I continued to smile in his face, but he did not perceive that my smile now was at the thought of his immolation. He had a weak point, this Fortunato. Although in other regards he was a man to be respected and even feared, he prided himself in his connoisseurship of wine. I was skillful in the Italian vintages myself and bought largely whenever I could. It was about dusk one evening during the supreme madness of the carnival season that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much. The man wore the costume of a jester. He had on tights, and his head was surmounted by the conical cap and bells. I was so pleased to see him that I thought I should never have done with wringing his hand. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkably well you are looking today. Oh, I have received a keg of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts." "How," said he, "Amontillado, a cask? Impossible. And in the middle of the carnival?" "Well, I have my doubts, and I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain." "Amontillado, Amontillado." "Yes, as you are engaged, I am on my way to meet Lucchesi. If anyone has a critical turn, it is he. He will tell me." "Lucchesi cannot tell Amontillado from sherry. And yet some fools will have it that his taste is a match for your own. Come, let us go to your vaults." "Oh, my friend, no, I will not impose upon your good nature. I perceive you have an engagement, Lucchesi." "I have no engagement. Come." "My friend, no, it is not the engagement, but the severe cold with which I perceive you are afflicted. The vaults are insufferably damp. They are encrusted with mold." "Let us go, nevertheless. The cold is merely nothing. Amontillado, you have been imposed upon. As for Lucchesi, he cannot distinguish sherry from Amontillado." Thus speaking, Fortunato possessed himself of my arm. I, putting on a mask of black silk and drawing a cape closely about my person, suffered him to hurry me to my palazzo. Oh, there were no attendants at home. They had absconded to make merry in honor of the time. I took from their sconces 2 torches, and giving one to Fortunato, bowed him through several suites of rooms to the archways that led into the vaults. I passed down a long and winding staircase, requesting him to be cautious as he followed. We came at length to the foot of the descent and stood together on the damp ground of the catacombs of the Montresors, my family. The gait of my friend was unsteady, and the bells on his jester's cap jingled as he strode. "Where is the cask?" "It is farther on, but observe the white web work which gleams from these cavern walls." "Mold?" Mold, yes. How long have you had that cough?" My poor friend found it impossible to reply for many minutes. "It is nothing. Come, we will go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are a man to be missed. For me, it is no matter. We will go back. You will be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is Lucchese. Enough, enough. The cough is a mere nothing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough. True, true. And indeed, I had no intention of alarming you unnecessarily. But you should use all proper caution. A draught of this Madoc will defend us against the dance. Here I knocked off the neck of a bottle which I drew from a long row of its fellows that lay upon the mold. Drink, I said, presenting him the wine. He raised it to his lips with a sneer. He paused and nodded to me familiarly while his bells jingled. I drank to the buried that repose around us, and I to your long life. Well, he again took my arm, and we proceeded. The wine sparkled in his eyes, and the bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm with the Madoc. We had passed through walls of piled bones with casts and puncheons intermingling into the inmost recesses of the catacombs. I paused again, and this time made bold to seize Fortunato by an arm. The mold, you see, it increases. It hangs like moss upon the vaults. We are below the river's bed. The drops of moisture trickle among the bones. Come, we will go back ere it is too late. Your cough, it is nothing. Let us go on. Let us proceed to the Amontillado. Be it so. He leaned heavily upon my arm. We continued our route in search of the Amontillado. We passed through a range of low arches, descended, passed on, and descending again, arrived at a deep crypt in which the foulness of the air caused our torches to glow rather than flame. At the most remote end of the crypt, there appeared another room, less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human remains, piled to the vault overhead in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. Three sides of this interior crypt were still ornamented in this manner. From the fourth, the bones had been thrown down and lay in a mound upon the earth. Within the wall, thus exposed by the displacing of the bones, we perceived a still interior recess in depth about 4 feet, in width 3, in height 6 or 7, cut into the solid granite. Proceed. Herein is the Amontillado. As for Lucchese, he is an ignoramus. He stepped unsteadily forward while I followed immediately at his heels. In an instant, he had reached the extremity of the niche, and finding his progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. In the surface of the granite, there happened to be 2 iron staples. From one depended a short chain, from the other a padlock. It was but the work of a few seconds to throw the links about his waist and secure him. He was too much astounded to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. Pass your hand over the wall, Fortunato. You cannot help but feel the mold. Indeed, it is very damp. Once more, let me implore you to return. No? Then I must positively leave you. But I must first render you all the little attentions in my power. The Amontillado. True, the Amontillado. As I said these words, I busied myself among the pile of bones of which I have spoken. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials and with the aid of a trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. I scarcely laid the first tier of the masonry when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato had in a great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had of this was a low moaning cry from the depth of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man. Then there was a long and obstinate silence. I laid the second tier and the third and the fourth, and then I heard the furious vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which, that I might hearken to it with the more satisfaction, I ceased my labors and sat down upon the bones. When at last the clanking subsided, I resumed the trowel and finished without interruption the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh tier. The wall was now nearly upon a level with my breast. I again paused, and holding the torch over the masonwork, threw a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A succession of loud and shrill screams bursting suddenly from the throat of the chain form seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment I hesitated, I trembled. Then I placed my hand upon the solid fabric of the catacombs and felt satisfied. I reapproached the wall. I replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed. I aided. I surpassed them in volume and in strength. I did this. And the clamorer grew still. It was now midnight, and my task was drawing to a close. I had completed the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th tier. I had finished a portion of the last, the 11th. There remained but a single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially in its destined position. But now there came from out the niche a low laugh that erected the hairs upon the back of my neck. A very good joke indeed, an excellent jest. We will have many a rich laugh about it at the palazzo, over our wine. The Amontillado. Yes, the Amontillado. But is it not getting late? Will they not be waiting for us at the palazzo? The Lady Fortunato and the rest? Let us be gone. Yes, let us be gone. For the love of God, Montresor! Yes, for the love of God, Fortunato. But to these words I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud, Fortunato? Fortunato? No answer still. I thrust a torch through the remaining aperture and let it fall within. There came forth in return only a jingling of the bells. My heart grew sick on account of the dampness of the catacombs. I hastened to make an end of my labor. I forced the last stone into its position. I plastered it up. Against the new masonry, I erected the old rampart of bones. For the half of a century, no mortal has disturbed them. In pace requiescat.
Now, what y'all think? I mean, something else, right? So, a few things. He did a lot of, I was looking up his filmography. I was not trying to be rude there while I was on my phone, because I was wondering if he ever played Poe on Broadway. And yeah, I know, right? Thank you so much. I for some reason I want to call you Roof. Look from here where I'm at with my eyes, it looks like Ruffo. So if I do that, I apologize ahead of time. So anyway, how many did he do this on Broadway? Because I wanted to see what was up, and I thought, from what I read description and looking this up, that he did this in front of a live audience. They were very quiet. It wasn't one where some of those TV specials he did were of a time where they had that cheesy canned laughter, or they had the live audience, they added to it, blah, blah, blah. This he did with a very quiet audience. He had to have something. He's a thespian. He did perform on Broadway and lots of theater, as you can tell. And those actors are really good at knowing their lines. There's no prompter, teleprompter. There's no cue cards like they used to use back in the day, where that one poor guy had that job where he just kept changing cards. You know, it's like, look, there's your cue, your line. So Price didn't need that. This was all him. One man in a room. And you wonder why they need, a couple of you were saying that and pointed out, now in movies, you need CGI and, you know, Godzilla eating a whole town and everything else. I don't know who your favorite actor is, but while we finish, throw up your favorite actor that you think could pull off, and you've heard that had this kind of talent where they were one and done, or they could perform on the stage. Oddly enough, I think back, it reminds me of that fantastic episode block we did of Lincoln and the Lincoln assassination, and we looked into John Wilkes Booth and his father and his brothers. All three sons of the elder Booth were all actors like this. This is goes way back to those wonderful, you know, soliloquies and things that they would have even in the Old West. They would go up and do the vaudeville and perform in this way. But in my time, when I was a kid, when Vincent Price was doing these, because like I was 12 when this was on television. So I'm looking back at that because I don't know when you first experienced him doing this kind of thing, Price and others. So I was seeing people, there were still people like that. Now, somebody mentioned William Shatner. William Shatner takes it and goes crazy with it. He was so over the top in his acting. He was trying to do this, but you see where it missed. It was almost obnoxious in a lot of ways. And I saw him growing up and being Shatner in things like Twilight Zone and even beyond that. And I think it was like a Bonanza. I think he had a movie where he played a young Apache, and it was insulting. It really was. But that's just the way it was back then. But Vincent Price always stood out. I always found him. I loved him dearly because when he showed up, you knew you were going to get a spooky story. You're going to get ghosts. You were going to get whatever. And so I loved him as a kid. I don't know what your experience with him was, but this was nothing for Price. And he probably went in there and it would have meant everything to him to be ready. You could just imagine he's in the dressing room. He's getting ready. He's getting into character. He's working it out just like he's going out on Broadway and to just do a one-man show, you know, it's just like mass respect. But here it is in the perfect, let's just go ahead and give it to him. And for now, let's just settle on, you know, I can't name another one that's better, but there probably is, you know, depending on your style, whatever. It's a individual thing, personal thing, taste, whatever. But you got to hand it to the guy. Great job. And it probably meant more to him while he's sitting there getting ready and getting the character, putting on the ascot, getting the hair right, whatever, getting makeup, all that he's trying the lines, he's looking in the mirror and he's doing the thing. And he goes out there and he probably did it and done, one and done. And to him, that would have meant everything. If he had to stop and ask for a line, he would have found it just devastating, you know. I think he could play it off and laugh, and he was a great joker too. He had a great personality. But to them, an actor of that stature, that was everything. And I think he put that in the movies too, even if they were crazy movies that you look at now and you think, you know, House on Haunted Hill, The Wax Museum. It said something, I don't know, some obscure number of movies he did with this Roger. What was his name? You'll probably beat me to it, chat. Let's see. What's his name? He was famous for putting out these horror movies. Was it Corman? Is that the name? S- I think it was. So, shoot, I can't find it now. But yeah, I think it was. So many horror movies. I mean, Follow the House of Usher, House of Wax, Mask of the Red Death, House on Haunted Hill, The Pit and the Pendulum. So many of these are Poe. House, I said that one already. The Tomb of Ligeia. Tomb of Ligeia. Are these ringing a bell with anybody? Tales of Terror. So many. The Oblong Box. Oh my gosh. And that's another Poe, The Oblong Box. These scared us all as kids, right? They're on the channel 11 on Saturday afternoon or whatever, after cartoons, or this is what I'm going to talk with Steve about tomorrow. And I'm hoping he does. Depends on Holden, Nick and Holden first, but I've got some other stuff just like this for you guys, because I thought this was such a neat way to experience Poe. I hope you enjoyed it. Froze, are you here? Welcome in, baby. How you doing? Did you change what's your you're back to your icon. Maybe tomorrow you could be a Poe. Are you a Poe fan? Let me glimpse inside your velvet bones. Yep. Okay. That answered my question. Happy Halloween, Froze. Froze and I have been celebrating Halloween for a month and a half already. So I'm sure some of you have too. But yeah, that blows your mind, right? So many Poe movies, and Tower of London, Invisible Man. I mean, gosh, keep going. So later on, 80s, 90s, he started popping up in these other shows where they more or less were still in that realm of let's make it all a joke. Everything's a joke, as far as see your message. What's your message, sweetie? Where is it? Is it up here? Let me go back and see. I'm not going to be able to find it. Books and biography, latest update. Thank you, sweetheart. Is that the one? That can't be the one. What are you talking? What are you talking? Can you cut and paste it and throw it up again? It'll take a lot less time, because you know me, I'm blind. I have to focus and move it and focus and move. It's crazy. It's crazy. Don't get old, folks. I mean, the alternative really sucks, but you got to want it. You know what I mean? Halloween more than yep. We have a good time here. You enjoy. Hey, here's a perfect segue. Sonia, welcome in. And if you're new here, please subscribe. It doesn't cost a thing. Just hit the button. Please hit the button and hit the like, and get on in here and be cozy. Bring snacks. Have a good time. I've got tea. I'm doing the apple, caramel apple, cinnamon. It's fall, baby. It's official. It feels like we've been doing it, we just slid right on in there, Go outside, the leaves are already on the ground. It's like, oh, hey, by the time you caught up, leaves. So bring your tea, bring your cookies. I've got gingerbread cookies. We don't play. So this Halloween, and we're going to start it sooner than later, we are going to listen to Cabin 22 again if you want to. And I've asked a couple times. It seems like there's enough people here that'll really enjoy it. Look, I don't care if it's just an intimate crowd. We've got 5 or 6 people. I've been to dinner parties that, we could have lost a couple of them and gone down to, 4 and had a great time. So that's how we look at it, this show. We're all in here. Everybody wants to be in here. And if you want to hear the story again, I'm going to start it for Halloween because it's tradition. I think is this the 3rd annual? Where's my mods? Is this the 3rd annual Cabin 22 live listen live for Halloween? Is that what it is? So if you've never heard the story, it's myself. I wrote it. Well, I think I had some spirit guide help, but anyway, it's got everything. It's got Bigfoot. It's got soul sucking kids, ghost kids. It's got a murder mystery. It's got moonshiners and black cats and bats and scary candy corn, and it's got just villains and heroes and ghosts and Bigfoot and soul collectors and Native American shamans. I mean, it's just not saying I could go on for 20 minutes just naming the things it's got. It's got It's got fantastic dogs that you'll just fall in love with. It's so much stuff. So if you're going to be in here and you want to, you welcome it. It's free. You know, you have to bring your own snacks. I mean, I'll bring snacks, but you just have to watch me drink, you know, the tea or drink the beer or whatever. We also throw out recipes. So if you want, around here, we love bacon. So if it's in there, we're happy. So we do the bacon caramel corn. So if you want to make that, it's almost like having a 3D experience because you're eating bacon caramel corn. I'm eating it. Everybody's eating it, and we're enjoying the show. The whole thing, it's like an audiobook. It's 14 hours. I do all the voices, and I don't know where they came from either. The whole thing is just weird, you know, but it's a good story. And I can say that without feeling like I'm pointing fingers at me because I wasn't alone in the room. It's a really Halloween story, more than likely written by ghosts, not goats. That would be a different story. Ghosts or spirit or something weird was going on. And these characters just came to life and kind of wrote themselves, is what I mean. And it's got a big old rat in it too. It's got rats, it's got everything. If it's Halloween, it's got it, you know. And there's a battle on the mountain. It's a haunted cabin, haunted mountain. So welcome aboard. If you want to listen to it, we'll be listening to it. I think it's, how do we do it, mods? 6 consecutive live nights. We come in here, we meet in the chat. You bring your snacks, you sit down, and you know, get a good seat because they fill up fast. And that'll be happening soon. I will be announcing it in the YouTube channel and over on the Rumble. And so hit the notification so you don't miss it, because we sit here and the ones that have heard it before, you know, we'll tell everybody in the chat, here comes this, you know, we don't tell you what's happening. There's no spoilers allowed, but we bet on, you know, different things that the characters, you know, might do or how they're going to handle it. It's pretty cool. We have a good time. So welcome aboard. But that's something we do for Halloween. We're doing a lot of other stuff for Halloween. Of course, we're throwing out the mysteries and everything else. So why don't I shut up and let Vincent Price give us another story? What do you think? Can you handle one more? I just wanted to say that about Vincent because he deserves, I want you to see it this way and then look into this last story as this guy was one and done, walked out on that stage and just handled business. And it's a fantastic way to get introduced to certain stories with Poe. If you hadn't heard him before. Thank you, mods. I appreciate that. Thanks, Ted. I love you, sweetie. Oh, you'll see me. We do a lot of slap and tickle here in the chat with my mods and stuff like that. So if it ever looks like we're fighting, we're not fighting. We're just, you know, shut up and pass the whiskey balls, damn it. You know, that kind of stuff. And we'll sling bacon back and forth. Bacon is love. And you're welcome to be here. Thanks for coming in. Here we go. Let's see what he's got next. I hope you can hear it. You can hear it okay? It's coming up. That's why it's like this when they recorded this on the TV. I wanted to see if they're doing it live. This is insane. This is so good. This is the freakiest one. This blew my mind when I was a kid.
I was sick unto death with that long agony. I felt that my senses were leaving me. The dread sentence of death was the last distinct phrase which reached my ears. After that, the voices of the Inquisition judges seemed to merge in one dreamy, indeterminate hum. I saw the lips of the black-robed judges, white and thin even to grotesqueness, writhing with their deadly locution, fashioning the syllables of my name and the decree of death by torture. And then the blackness loomed close up against my skin, snuffing out even the evil whiteness of those damning lips, driving all sensibility into retreat in a mad rushing descent as of the soul into Hades. then silence and stillness and night were the universe. I had swooned, yet shadows of memory reflect dimly upon the inner walls of my mind. Shadows of tall figures that lifted and bore me down to a place of flatness and dampness and silence. Silence. Then all was madness. I would not open my eyes. I felt that I lay upon my back unbound. I reached out my hand and it fell heavily upon something damp and hard. I longed yet dared not to employ my vision. It was not that I feared to look upon things horrible, but that I grew aghast lest there should be nothing to see. At length, with a wild desperation at heart, I quickly unclosed my eyes. My worst thoughts were confirmed. The blackness of eternal night encompassed me. I struggled for breath. The intensity of the darkness seemed to oppress and stifle me. Perspiration burst from every pore and stood in big, cold beads upon my forehead. I thrust my arms wildly above and around me, clawing, grasping, reaching for something, either damnable or saving, but something. Nothing. The agony of suspense grew intolerable, and so I arose. Cautiously, I stepped forward, my eyes straining from their sockets in hope of catching some faint ray of light. But the blackness was still a disguise, until finally a wall, smooth, slimy, cold, a wall. I followed it up, stepping with all that careful distrust inspired by the thousand vague rumors of the horrors of Toledo. Finally, I took courage. I resolved to quit the wall and to cross the enclosure in as direct a line as possible. The floor was treacherous with slime. I advanced cautiously, some 10 or 12 paces in this manner, when suddenly I stumbled and fell violently on my face. In the confusion attending my fall, I did not immediately apprehend a somewhat startling circumstance. It was this. My chin rested upon the floor of the prison, but my lips and the upper portion of my head touched nothing. At the same time, my forehead seemed bathed in a clammy vapor, and the peculiar smell of decayed fungus arose to my nostrils. I had fallen at the very brink of a circular pit. Groping about the masonry, just below the margin, I succeeded in dislodging a small fragment and let it fall into the abyss. Many seconds I waited and hearkened to its reverberations as it dashed against the sides of the chasm in its descent. At length there was a sullen plunge into water, succeeded by loud echoes. At the same moment there came a sound resembling a quick opening of a door overhead, while a faint gleam of light flashed suddenly through the gloom and as suddenly faded away. Shaking in every limb, I groped my way back to the wall, resolving there to perish rather than risk the terrors of the pit. Agitation of spirit kept me awake for many long hours, but at length I fell into a deep slumber. Upon arousing, I found that objects around me were visible, a wild, sulphurous luster. By that I was enabled to see the extent and aspect of the prison. What I had taken for masonry seemed now to be iron in huge plates. Figures of hideous fiends in aspects of menace with skeleton forms overspread and disfigured the walls. In the center of the floor yawned the circular pit from whose jaws I had escaped. Then I realized that I was securely bound to a low framework of wood, strapping past in many convolutions about my body, leaving at liberty only my head and my left arm, said that only with much exertion could I supply myself with food from an earthen dish which lay by my side on the floor. The food in the dish was meat, pungently seasoned. Looking upward, I surveyed the ceiling of my prison. It was some 30 or 40 feet overhead, and suspended therefrom was what appeared to be a huge pendulum, such as one might see on antique clocks. While I gazed at it, I fancied that I saw it move, ever so slightly. I watched it for some minutes, somewhat in fear, but more in wonder. Then a noise attracted my notice, and looking to the floor, I saw several enormous rats. They had issued from the pit with ravenous eyes allured by the scent of the meat. It required much effort and attention to scare them away from the food. When I again cast my eyes upward, what I saw confounded and amazed me. The sweep of the pendulum had increased in extent by nearly a yard. What mainly disturbed me was the idea that it had perceptibly descended. I now observed, with what horror it is needless to say, that its lower extremity was a crescent of glittering steel, about a foot in length from horn to horn, the horns upward, and the under edge evidently as keen as that of a razor, and it hissed as it swung through the air, inch by inch, with a descent only appreciable at intervals that seemed ages. Down and still down it came. Days passed ere it swept so closely over me as to fan me with its acrid breath. I prayed for its more speedy descent. I grew frantically mad and struggled to force myself upward against the sweep of the fearful scimitar. And then suddenly I fell calm and lay smiling at the glittering death as a child would at some rare bauble. I saw that the crescent was designed to cross the region of my heart. It would fray the serge of my garment. It would return and repeat its operations again and again. But the fraying of my garment would be all that for several minutes it would accomplish. To the right, to the left, far and wide, down, steadily down it crept, with the shriek of a damned spirit, to my heart, with the stealthy pace of the tiger. I alternately laughed and howled as the odor of the sharp steel forced itself into my nostrils. Down, relentlessly down. It vibrated finally within 3 inches of my bosom. 10 or 12 sweeps would bring the steel in actual contact with my clothing. And then with this observation there suddenly came over my spirit all the keen, collected calmness of despair. For the first time in many hours, or perhaps days, I thought of the rats. They had been literally swarming around the low framework upon which I lay. They were wild, bold, and ravenous, their red eyes glaring upon me as if they waited for motionlessness on my part to make me their prey. What food, I thought, have they been accustomed to in the pit? They had devoured in spite of all my efforts to prevent them all but a small remnant of the contents of the dish. Although my plan was scarcely sane, I proceeded at once to attempt its execution. With the particles of the oily and spicy meat which now remained, I thoroughly rubbed the restraining binding wherever I could reach it. Then I lay breathlessly still. At first, the ravenous animals were startled and terrified at the change. Observing, however, that I remained without motion, one or two of the boldest leapt upon the framework and smelt at my bonds. This seemed the signal for a general rush. They leapt in hundreds upon my person. The measured movement of the pendulum disturbed them not at all. Avoiding its strokes, they busied themselves gnawing the anointed bindings. They pressed, they swarmed upon me in ever accumulating heaps. They writhed upon my throat. Their cold lips sought my own. I was half stifled by their thronging pressure. Disgust, for which the world has no name, swelled my bosom and chilled with a heavy clamminess my heart. Yet 1 minute and I felt that the struggle would be over. Plainly I perceived the loosening of the strapping. I knew that in more than one place it must be already severed. With a more than human resolution, I lay still. Nor had I erred in my calculations, nor had I endured in vain. I at last felt that I was free. But the stroke of the pendulum already pressed upon my bosom. It had divided the surge of my garment. Twice again it swung, and a sharp sense of pain shot through every nerve. But the moment of escape had arrived. At a wave of my hand, my deliverers hurried tumultuously away. With a steady movement, I slid from the embrace of the bindings and beyond the reach of the scimitar. I was free! Free! But still in the grasp of the Inquisition. I had scarcely stepped from my wooden bed of horror when the motion of the hellish machine ceased, and I beheld it drawn up. My very motion was undoubtedly watched. Free! I had but escaped death in one form of agony, to be delivered unto worse than death in some other. With that thought, I rolled my eyes nervously on the barriers of iron that hemmed me in. I observed that the figures of the fiends upon the walls had now assumed a startling and most intense brilliancy. Demon eyes of a wild and ghastly vivacity glared upon me from 1,000 directions. It was unreal. While I breathed, there came to my nostrils the breath of the vapor of heated iron. A suffocating odor pervaded the prison. I panted. I gasped for breath. I shrank from the burning metal to the center of the cell. Amid the thought of the fiery destruction that impended, the idea of the coolness of the pit came over my soul like balm. I rushed to its deadly brink. I threw my straining eyes below. The glare from the enkindled roof illuminated its inmost recesses. Yet for a wild moment did my spirit refuse to comprehend the meaning of what I saw. At length it forced, it burned its way into my soul. Oh, for a voice to speak. Oh, horror! Oh, any horror but this! The heat increased rapidly, and once again I looked up. There had been a second change in the cell, and now the change was obviously in the form. The room had been square. The fearful difference quickly increased with a low, rumbling sound. The apartment was shifting its form into that of a rectangle. Death, I screamed! Any death but that of the pit! Fool! Might I not have known that into the pit was the object of the burning iron to urge me? And now closer and closer grew the walls. I shrank back, but the closing walls pressed me resistlessly onward. At length, for my seared and writhing body, there was no longer an inch of foothold on the firm floor of the prison. I struggled no more, but the agony of my soul found vent in one long, loud, and final scream of despair. I felt that I tottered upon the brink. Then suddenly there was a discordant hum of human voices. There was a loud blast as of many trumpets. The fiery walls rushed back. An outstretched arm caught my own as I fell, fainting into the abyss. It was that of General LaSalle. The French army had entered Toledo. The Inquisition is in the hands of its enemies.
Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, Vincent Price. There it is. I mean, you can imagine that being in one of those nice little, I hope they still exist, those little theaters downtown. Been there forever, has a really cool history of just being the town theater. And it might even still have like red velvet seat cushions and curtains. We just lost one that was like that not long ago here in the Jersey Shore. One my mom went to back when she was a little girl. That's how long ago it was. But anyhow, you go to a theater like that. We still have some, but not many. And it's a little intimate theater, and you're sitting around, and he's on the stage, and he's doing that. That whole theater would have just been just engaged, you know, and left feeling differently than when they came in. It's such a cool thing. It's such an amazing ability. There's many names you'll never hear that can do that. But these were the ones, I guess, when I was growing up, from a little young thing till, you know, all the way through high school for sure. And after, you know, when my kids were little, you know, that's when he was showing up and doing things like popping in, doing, you know, Sesame Street, and, you know, Kermit bit him on the neck and things like that. Not, you know, it was memorable and quite fun, but not as fun and memorable as the time Ozzy took over. And I believe, if I remember correctly, the letters that day when Ozzy was the guest was the letters F and U, or something like that. Anyway, I could be remembering differently. But Vincent Price, fantastic. So the combination of Vincent Price doing Edgar Allan Poe, after seeing that, I think you can agree with me that that's a great example of another form of Poe's work being put out there. And just like the spoken word, there you had it acted out. You had the whole thing. I mean, my gosh, he's all in. He's all in. And I wonder, like the question I asked at the beginning, if Poe was to do this, there's no way I would imagine Poe, but maybe he did. I don't know. I never saw him live. How do you imagine Poe doing his own work on stage in that kind of atmosphere that you just saw Vincent Price in? It's an interesting concept to think of. And I think it's fun to think of it that way, as loony as I probably appear doing it, is that it's a cool way to look at Poe in a different way and maybe find something for yourself that pulls you out of whatever you might be going through as well. And it's got all the aspects. It's got, you know, if you like getting into like dark goth stuff, if you like doing mysteries, if you like solving puzzles, if you like, he's got everything, and he lived it in his own life. You know, he dealt with tragedy, and I think this was a constant tragedy and loss. And like I said in the beginning, it came through in the work, but I think it was deeper. I mean, look at that writing. Look at the way, when given to a good actor, you know, of that caliber, and look at the way it came out off the page, is what I'm trying to say. It's an amazing feat. A lot of people here are talking about King and his works and things like that, and I agree with just about everything that was said. But the thing is, he's been in my life my whole life. That, you know, who was alive and producing new works as it went along. And it's an interesting concept to think about. And I wonder if you guys can, you know, pros especially, because you were probably reading around the same time I was reading the same stuff, you know, Amityville, because I know Fro's been here a long time. He's a goat. So, and Spirit Goat. not a spirit goat, just a regular goat, you know. He's been around a long time in our chat. So I know some of the books he's read and, going through all these shows. So anyway, I think that's an interesting way to look at it because Stephen King was churning out new works as I grew up. So I probably started reading him around the same time. Shining. I think I jumped to Shining. That's when I discovered him, paperback. Jumped back, found out he had other stuff, went back and read Carrie. Then I think I got a hold of Christine after that. And then gone. So I was like caught up. And then, whoa, when's the next one coming? And it was that forever. Until I hit the Dark Tower and I tried so hard. Both my sons get it. Both my sons were into it. And then the movie, the whole thing, it's a whole nother story. But what's interesting is I wonder if the people in Poe's time, that when he was active and he was putting out his works in newspapers and there was another magazine, maybe we'll hear about it tomorrow night, and very similar to Dickens' time. But that's our way of looking at it and going, wow, you were looking forward to the next thing and the next thing. And then just like when you have a favorite band or whatever, you love that first album and maybe the second album, and then all of a sudden they took a hard left somewhere and you're like, what happened? And that happens with authors where it seems like Poe had a steady go, but it just wasn't as popular till after, he passed. And I think it connected in so much with not just people like to be scared then too, just like us reading King or, whoever your selected author may be. Up until a point where I couldn't, I much prefer the older stuff. There's nothing I can mention that was recent, and I've read most of it, that ever grabbed me. Like you mentioned in the chat, it has to grab me. If it's not going to grab me, you got to take me there. Take me there. I don't want to be here. Take me there. Make me believe it. Let me see it. Since, like I said, Dark Tower, and there was a couple. Needful Things was okay. I felt it was like really layered on top of Something Wicked This Way Comes, Ray Bradbury. I don't know if he's ever said that it was an influence, but it's obvious. A lot of his work now, looking back over the decades, I can look back and I can see a Twilight Zone. I'm like, okay, that's where he got it. And it's just like writing music. It's very difficult to say, hey, look, he wrote a great hit song, but 20 years ago, a guy had the same kind of riff. He had the same kind of chord change or whatever the hell. It's like, it's very hard to say, it's my word, my musical note, there's just too many different and only so many combos. So there's are going to be similar things, but then things are so similar. It's like, it's not exactly plagiarism, but I could see where you got the idea. There hasn't been any good. I mean, the fairy tale one was, I got through that. I had to do audiobook. Outsider, too scary to the truth. So it was so close to the truth, it wasn't as enjoyable because it just reminded me so much of stuff that's actually happening. But I think that The Stand, I would have to say, is almost my favorite. And again, similar stuff. So there you go. That's just my opinion. I think it's an interesting concept to look at it and also enjoy Poe in another way. I hope you enjoyed that tonight. Like I said, we could have done the documentary. We could just go, and I'm going to touch on those things tomorrow with Steve. I'm interested just going out. We're going to do, just cold turkey. He can come on and we're just going to, I've got a couple of other surprises to show you, but I want to hear what he has to say off the cuff. And I think that's what like the most interesting thing. So there's a lot of stuff out there on Poe. There's a lot of mysteries. I have a lot more to show you. And I just think it's so sad and so deeply dark, ironic, like, that his end was as such as it was, you know. And he left us in typical Poe manner with that mystery and that question mark that only Poe could do. The last one you saw, the Pit and the Pendulum, if that didn't take you places, just amazing. Just amazing story. And that's one of the ones that got me as a kid. I was like, whoa. And it might have been a little bit too spicy for me back then. And maybe that's why I backed off, and I wasn't ready for Poe. But I also know that there's a huge healing that he's done throughout the decades with a lot of people that are suffering or having a hard time, that have to be in that darkness to find their way back out. It's kind of like a dip and go, you know. Hopefully some get in there and stay in there, and you know, that's why we're here, to kind of try to help them out and help each other. So thanks for being here. On the way out, I have one last one for you. It is about 10 minutes long, so I'm sorry if I kept you here, but it's worth the wait. It's my very favorite, and it's probably one of your favorites too. It's The Raven. And here we go.
The Raven. Once upon a midnight dreary,
Here's another good
I
one.
wandered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this, and nothing more. Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore. Nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger. Hesitating then no longer, "Sir," said I, "or Madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door." Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the darkness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, Lenore. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, Lenore. Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see, then, what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more. Open here, I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marvel this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door. Bird or beast above the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further then he uttered, not a feather then he fluttered. Still I scarcely more than muttered. Other friends have flown before. On the morrow will he leave me, as my hopes have flown before? Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by replies so aptly spoken. Doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast, and followed faster, until his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore of never, nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling all my sad soul into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking evermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl, whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining, on the cushion's velvet violet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er. But whose velvet violet lining, with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer swung by seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee. By these angels he has sent thee respite, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore. Tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels named Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting, get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken, quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the padded bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul, from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore.
Amazing work of art. Christopher Lee. Poe, the Raven. It's amazing. What can you say? So there is my version of getting to know Poe, because I could sit here and ramble on forever. You bring the masters and to describe the master of Goth, the author of the mystery the templates for all the different mystery templates for, the detective mysteries. It's an amazing thing, and still is relevant, more relevant than when he was alive. And that's a feat, because it's one of those things that even though this changes and that changes and the world goes nuts, it's one of those things that are a foundation go-to. I can't imagine more Halloween than Christopher Lee and Vincent Price and Edgar Allan Poe. But to look back on that work right there, The Raven, I saved it for last for a reason. One, it's my favorite, and two, it's probably the one, whether Annabelle Lee got to me, I mean, just the way it's written, how could it not? And maybe I can get one and play for that for you tomorrow. But you can say they're all about horror, or they're all about fear, they're all about, as in the pendulum, being stuck in a prison, not being able to get out, and a pendulum is, going across you, and that there's nothing you can do to have to endure these rats. It's very similar to Andy Dufresne having to go through the tunnel of shit to get out of Shawshank prison in Shawshank Redemption. There's your Stephen King again, which now that was a good movie adaptation of a book, my opinion. Prove me wrong with science. So anyway, that Stand By Me was the body, and a short novella. So I know my King too. It's just in my head. I think in my head, there's a lot of people that I just imagine, well, it's a shame they passed, and then I just don't have to deal with them anymore. And I remember them the way they were, Bruce Springsteen's like that. And I'm in Jersey, and I'll say that. It's like, and somebody said something about, Springsteen concert, you're going to go, you're going to do. Listen, you have no idea what a Springsteen concert is like in New Jersey and Jersey Shore. And the ticket prices, and it's insane. And it's like, what? And we're a family of musicians. We know this dude. We've got history. And it's just, so I just give the short version. I'm walking by and I say, I wouldn't go see him if he was performing live in my bathroom. The whole place just got real quiet. But anyway, that's how I feel about some of these people. I agree. I don't know why they ruin it. So, but King is different than Poe. I don't think you can really match them, debate against it, because they're different. They're different, totally different. I'll tell you how totally different they are. You have an idea of what The Shining was about. Everybody could talk about that and debate it all day long and add stuff, but you get the gist. The Raven is so many different things to so many different people. When I was a kid, I was lucky enough to hear these people doing Poe. So as I said, the ones that stuck out to me, this was one. And I understood it. And I knew right away, the whole thing is about grief. The whole thing is about grief. And losing that love, losing such a part of you, that you're basically asking this thing that keeps shadowing from the shadows on the floor that are constantly there, just like his grief, to this raven that's it's agonizing, like the telltale heart. It's just not letting him go. But instead of going mad, he just gets deeper into the realization that, when will this go away? When will this ache go away? When will I stop feeling this way? My hell is realizing that I'm going to go the rest of my life like this. When is it going away? Nevermore. It's always going to be there. So it's almost a pyre, for the person that's lost, or and the person that's experiencing this, because a part of yourself is gone too. And now you have to go on, you have to continue on, find a way to continue on, understanding those shadows are always going to follow you. What you do with them is, but that raven, is always going to be there. It show up when you least expect it and peck on that window till you face it. And I think that was one of the ways Poe found out to survive that kind of pounded grief of losing, the women that he loved like that, and having the men in his family disappoint him probably a whole lot worse than they ever said he disappointed them. So that was a lot for him to deal with. He put it on paper. You see the result, masterpiece after masterpiece. This is just but a few. We'll try to hit on some more tomorrow. And thanks for making it great. Thanks for everybody who's new here. Please hit the like on the way out. Please subscribe. It doesn't cost a thing. Hit the button. Okay? Just hit the button. Share it out. It's Halloween. That's a great show to share with people. Introduce them to Poe, especially the Raven, and some of these others, and, the Pit and the Pendulum. Can you imagine? What's more horrific? Waking up and you're in this prison during the Spanish Inquisition. Rats free you. You like rats freak you out? If that didn't freak you out, having rats crawling all over you, he could feel their lips. Ugh. That's not horror. That's horror, baby. That's horror. He gets free only to have this everything closing in and the place is on fire. And then at the very end, he didn't give up. Because what was at the end? Very much like Stephen King's The Mist. What'd that guy do at the end? He gave up. He killed everybody in the car. And then he found out it was the army that was really coming to pull him out of that bad situation. And everybody would have been saved. He jumped the gun. Right? So this guy didn't want to get the pit. Instead of getting in the pit, which he thought was inevitable, he was ready to give up. He looked up and found out he was being rescued. So there you go. Your rescue may differ. I love y'all. Thanks for being here. You want to dance on the way out? Let's do it again. I like that. I like that little tune. And I think it's jazzy. We need a little pickup. We went real dark tonight. We went Poe. What's better for Halloween? Please come and listen to Cabin 22 with us. Please come back tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, here with Mr. Steve Stockton. We're hoping he's a new papa. We love Holden, our little sweet new little paranormal, super wonderful baby. And we hope we'll touch a little bit more on Poe. Let's see what Mr. Stockton thinks about it. So there you go. Thank you so much. Disregard your message. I didn't see your message. Now I have to remember a message I didn't. I don't know how to do that, Cat. I'm sleepy. I'm going to sleep. There you go, Lynn. Hi, Lynn. How you doing? Hey, if you want to pop in tomorrow night, listen, bring snacks. Come talk about Poe with me and Steve. I think it'd be great. Let's have a good time. Let's have a good time when we can get together. And please come in and listen to the mysteries during the week. Again, sometimes, like I said, some people we don't even just come in and touch base and get a little light and give a little light, it's kind of like that thing, take one, leave one, take one kind of thing, like a book. So we do that with light. I appreciate y'all being here. I feel better after always when you guys are here, and I appreciate you so much. So let's dance on the way out. Why not? Keep dancing. Just keep swimming. Keep dancing. All right. Spooky season has begun. Yes, it has, D-Rock. It is official. Love you too, baby. Love you too. Everybody, Lynn Monet, get her books. She's an author. She's an experiencer. She is a medium. She is an end of life. Are you a doula? You kind of like a doula. But anyway, she has her own titles. All of that stuff. That's why she's had so many experiences. Chick bought a house. It was so haunted she couldn't even move in. It's like 2-3 days, maybe the first week. She said, She's a big bag of note. Went through all that stuff. She's got a great story, great books. So she's a friend of the show. She's on here often every Sunday at the end of the month, and many other times. We have a blast. So come on, join us tomorrow night. I love y'all. And that is all she wrote. Sorry to keep you late, but man, it's Halloween. I needed that. How about you? There you go. Doula. Death doula. I thought so. Sometimes I get, I get mixed up. All right, here we go. Let's do it. Take your shoes off. Your slippers. Cowboy boot. Your wallies. Is that what they're called? That is the scariest thing. Look at that. Good night, everybody. Spooky. Spooky. Spooky season.
Something about you feels so different.
Night, everybody.
Yeah, you mess me up inside. It's like your energy was kissing my soul back to life, was living. Now it feels like every part of me's died. Yeah, you're gone without a trace. You left me where no one can find me. There's no sign of life out here. I scream and it goes silent. I fight so hard, but I can't find my way out.
Happy Halloween, gatekeeper. Be good human.
Every message that I send you, you just leave them all unread. Now every part of me is hurting, cross my heart. I don't deserve this. Loved you just for you to haunt me in the end. Yeah, you're gone without a trace. You left me where no one can find me. There's no sign of life out here. I scream and it goes silent. I